who was believed to be the wife of Nimrod. But regardless of the veracity of the name, as many as 180 shrines dedicated to the goddess Ishtar were documented in ancient Babylon. So the idolatrous mother-son fertility cult worship can be seen today in virtually every aspect of the globe, because it was all spawned there and spread around the world. In Greece, she became Aphrodite, Artemis, Athena, Demeter, Gaia. In Rome, she was Venus, Diana, Minerva, Terra. In India, she became the goddess Devaki with the infant Krishna, as well as the goddess Isis and the infant Iswara. In Egypt, she was the goddess Isis with a son Horus. In Asia, she was known as Sibyl and Eos. The Scandinavians called her Disa, and she is often pictured with a child. The ancient Germans worshipped the Virgin Hertha with a child in her arms, and on it goes. And as we see even biblically, this Queen of Heaven also had a son named Tammuz. Even Israel was later rebuked for worshiping the Queen of Heaven, the goddess Ishtar. We read of this in Jeremiah chapter 44. And they even were rebuked for worshiping her son Tammuz in Ezekiel chapter 8:14, which included forms of idol worship that involved the lowest, most vile, and abominable forms of immorality, things that are unspeakable, idolatrous practices that they refused to abandon, therefore God judged them. Now, it should be no surprise that the name Queen of Heaven, Mother of God, is still used by Roman Catholics to describe the Virgin Mary. In fact, any honest student of Roman Catholicism will quickly see that the papacy and the Roman Catholic system is far more Babylonish and Jewish than it is Christian. Historically, we can see this Babylonish mother of harlots eventually settled in Rome. And when Constantine conquered Rome around 300 AD, he mixed a perverted form of Christianity with the pagan Babylonish myths and so forth of Rome, mixed them together, all of that paganism, to form the Roman Catholic Church. They also mixed much of Judaism with it. Therefore, the altars and the robes and all the things of the Pharisees can be easily traced to various facets of Judaism. And during that time, the famous historian Eusebius, which was a follower of the church father Origen, taught that the church, which is now the Roman Catholic or Roman Universal Church, was the new Israel, that it had permanently replaced the Jew. In fact, Constantine even made it a crime to convert to Judaism. And ultimately, Constantine united the new Roman Empire with the new Roman Catholic Church in an effort to promote loyalty and unity among the citizens. So this mixture of Babylonian paganism and aspects of Judaism and a distorted form of Christianity became the Roman Catholic Church. It literally became the glue that held the early Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, together. And to this day, Roman Catholics ultimately worship Mary, the Holy Mother, called the Queen of Heaven. In fact, the coat of arms of Pope John Paul II bears the letter M, which stands for Mary. And embroidered on the inside of his robes is the Latin phrase, totus tuus sum Maria, which means, Mary, I'm all yours. History is replete with documented evidence of popes who were notoriously evil. And of course, this is all thoroughly pagan. It's rooted once again in ancient Babylon, and these popes are in many ways prototypes of the Antichrist. If you want to read some of this, read Vicars of Christ, The Dark Side of the Papacy by Peter de Rosa, who was a former Jesuit. The same type of vileness can be seen even in the recent scandals of the Roman Catholic priesthood. Again, the Roman Catholic Church is Babylonish at its core, and it will continue to be a major player in the religious system of the Antichrist and the false prophet. I might add that it is staggering to me to see how many evangelicals who claim to be Bible-believing Christians are trying to get people to believe that somehow the Roman Catholic Church is just another brand of Christianity. People who are desperate to see us all just kind of get along. Let's just set aside these minor doctrinal differences. Maybe you've read of this movement, Evangelicals and Catholics Together. It's astounding to me. It's beyond the purview of our study here today for me to elaborate on the differences. But dear friends, they are vast. They are vast. Have you not studied the 5 solas of the Reformation? Have you not studied the Reformation? At their famous Council of Trent in 1543, they said this, quote, "If anyone says that after the reception of the grace of justification, the guilt is so remitted and the debt of eternal punishment so blotted out to every repentant sinner that no debt of temporal punishment remains to be discharged by the person's own suffering, either in this world or in purgatory, before the gates of heaven can be opened, let him be anathema," which means let him be damned. Well, beloved, then, if you believe the gospel, you are damned according to that. People say, well, they don't still believe that. Oh, wrong. This was once again affirmed at Vatican II in 1965. Beloved, grace is at the very core of the gospel. The Roman Catholic system utterly eviscerates grace and says that it's faith plus works, it's grace plus works. It's not Scripture alone, it's Scripture plus tradition. And on it goes. It should be no surprise that the Roman Catholic Church is positioning itself today at the very center of the current movement towards globalization and an emerging world government. In fact, as I mentioned to you in an earlier exposition, in a recent papal treatise called Charity and Truth given by Pope Benedict XVI, just prior to the meeting at the G8 nations in Italy this July, he stated that there is an urgent need for a, quote, true world political authority to manage world affairs, end quote. In fact, the New York Times picked up on this and noted in their July 7th edition that the Pope's controversial statement clearly endorsed a new world economic order. The Pope did warn, however, that such an order could, quote, produce a dangerous universal power of a tyrannical nature, end quote. Well, boy, he got that right. It will produce that of the Antichrist and the false prophet. So once again, beloved, we see the events of prophecy casting their shadows forward. So out of the Tower of Babel, out of that complex of all these pagan religions, we find all of the religions today that are apostate, whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, shamanism that I ran into so much in Siberia, Islam, whatever it is. They were all birthed by the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth in ancient Babylon. After Babel, you may remember that the great empire of Babylon was built by Nebuchadnezzar, right there in Iraq, the cradle of civilization. It's interesting how it all began there, and it will all end there. This remains the most hostile region in the world in its vicious hatred of God's covenant people, the Jews, and certainly the true church. So here in Revelation 17, the Lord warns